I'm done. I'm
No.
finished.
Okay.
Char-
I was gonna
Stay
do
here.
the.
You be a good simp and you stay here.
Oh my
I'm
god.
All right.
I'm mad. I was gonna do that exact same thing. I was already waiting for them to say one.
Okay.
I'm done.
Hello, everybody. Hello to all of my wonderful viewers and subscribers. I don't know how many of you are here yet. Probably zero. But today we are going to be talking about something horrifying that my friend Mari brought to my attention. The
Woo woo.
116th Congress has released this document on the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis. And it has been discovered that the United States federal government has allowed the crisis to get this bad on purpose in order to pursue herd immunity. For anyone who knows anything about herd immunity, that's not how that works. That's never been how that works. Herd immunity is something achieved through vaccines and healthcare and basic common decency, not by allowing over 20,000 people to die. I'm going to read an excerpt from the first paragraph, and then we're just going to go through the document as a whole, piece by piece, together.
Oh
This
boy.
memorandum describes evidence recently obtained by the Select Subcommittee bleh, showing that a Trump administration appointee at the Department of Health and Human Services, or the HHS, senior advisor Paul Alexander, privately strategized with other top administration officials as far back as June 2020 about pursuing a so-called herd immunity strategy in response to the coronavirus pandemic. Dr. Alexander explicitly endorsed allowing the disease to spread widely among infants, teens, kids, teens, young people, young adults, middle-aged people with no conditions, etc. Writing, "We use them to develop herd. We want them infected." The views expressed in these private communications were later echoed by President Trump and other officials, raising the serious possibility that key administration officials have pursued a deliberate or reckless policy of allowing Americans to be infected with the coronavirus. Fuck.
Yeah.
That's disturbing on so many levels.
Shy, Opal is saying that your volume is low.
Hold on.
Wow.
I don't have much to say because just the sheer anger is leaving me almost nonverbal at this point.
I'm not even surprised. Like, I feel no anger. It's just gross.
Further down in the document.
I'm not shocked or I'm not taken aback, but I am mad.
Further down in the document, it actually talks.
Go ahead.
Further down in the document, they actually disclose as well, Alexander does, as well as Trump's own administration, that they knew that this would disproportionately affect low economic status, impoverished, and POC communities.
What a fucking surprise.
And actually intentionally reopened schools and colleges in a physical capacity to promote infection.
So this wasn't just as the end result of 4 years of anti-science fuckheads getting into political power. It's also the result. The long and short of it is this was an attempted genocide. Basically.
Not an attempted. This is a successful genocide.
This is a successful genocide.
Thousands of people are dead.
This is the pandemic in America is not the result of incompetence. You're telling me this is the result of active malice on the part of the ruling class.
Yep.
Just like this is literally the AIDS crisis part 2. This is exactly what they did during the AIDS crisis, is they let innocent people die for political gain.
I didn't link it as well, but there are other sources that are really starting to come to light en masse, including that it seems like let's see, that this news has also come up from Politico, and turns out that Conway and Ivanka were an active part of this effort as well to actively suppress information from the CDC.
Of course they were. Of course they were. They're fucking
essentially
the voter base for the Trump administration is anti-vaxxers and autism moms. Of course they were.
Yeah, so it just it's one thing to see, mass social regression on an aggressive level. It's another to know that that was not only actively fostered, but actively fostered in the name of genocide.
How do we know the validity of this document? Opal, it comes from the United States government's official website.
This is actually coming specifically from the House of Representatives subcommittee for coronavirus. The only reason this has gotten out is because the House is currently Democrat dominated. So it was actually the Democratic Party who pushed this through to be released.
I will scroll back up to the top and show all of the legitimizing details on the top of the memorandum. Also, this is a house.gov website, so it's linked directly with the House of Representatives.
This is about as official as it can get.
This is as official as a government website document can be held. There was literally a government conspiracy to allow people to intentionally get infected. Here's another quote from Dr. Alexander. There is no other way. We need to establish herd, and it only comes about allowing the non-high-risk groups expose themselves to the virus, period. We continue the public health message of proper hygiene, hand washing, protecting elderly at your homes and nursing care facilities, social distancing, and so on. But we go on and let our societies open up fully now. If the hospitalizations occur in young and they get severe illness, then that's a different story, and we will then have a huge mess on our hands and real nightmare. But that is not the case of now. There are thousands of people dead! And you don't consider that a crisis? Not only do I want Alexander fired at this point, I want this man's medical qualifications stripped. I want to see this motherfucker imprisoned.
If you keep scrolling, they also talk about how they actively were attempting to keep Dr. Fauci from speaking on national news because he was aware of this and was trying to stop it.
Yeah, get the guillotine, as Shiloh likes to say.
Yeah.
The
guillotine, bitch.
It only cost $1,200 to build. Let's fucking go.
No wonder they only gave us one $1,200 check.
This
yeah.
This isn't a fucking COVID isn't real conspiracy. This is a government conspiracy to let people die. I want to believe that this is a joke. I want to believe that this is false. But this is a verified congressional document released to the public 4 hours ago.
Yeah, and there's two things here.
Nate the Craven, I am reading a government document. This is not propaganda.
Alright, time.
Alright.
I'll ban them.
Alright, Craven, I'm putting you in timeout.
Shiloh, I think Croffin wanted to say something.
Go ahead, Croffin.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things here. First is, as you observed, this is an official government document, which they voluntarily released. So this isn't Pike and Church Committee results. This is what they were willing to go on record saying. So now I do not buy into conspiracy theory nonsense generally, but I will tell you, if this is anything like the COINTELPRO documents and stuff like that, it's actually far worse than this. I would, I'd bet my life on that. And the second thing is, what they are doing, again, what this is describing is stuff that people were sentenced to be hung for at the Nuremberg trials and the Tokyo war crime trials. This is crimes against humanity level shit.
And remember, none of them will be able to be tried at The Hague because there is a United States legislation that dictates that if a member of U.S. government or a citizen of the United States is tried at The Hague, it will result in a full-scale American military invasion. So the UN won't try them for this.
On an entirely unrelated note, I'm going to promote the Socialist Rifle Association as a very helpful organization for people to join.
I love you, Raffen.
Not to distract from the joke, but I, on a personal level, am horrified by this because a lot of you don't know me, but I am actually a teacher. And our school has not dealt lightly with the fact that we are not allowed to not have kids in person. As many kids as possible, we try to keep them home. As many teachers as possible, we try to keep them home. I've been teaching virtually because I have classes exceeding 42 kids at a time. There is no way to be safe with that. We are not a private school, we're a charter school, but as a result, like, we've been able to do a lot that typical public schools haven't. And we've still had situations where one of my students has been orphaned by COVID. And now he and his two little siblings have had to go back to Mexico because that's where his grandparents are, the only people who are available to take care of them. And so there are 3 kids, and these are just kids I know. There's even more situations like this, but I have kids whose parents have lost power because they got sick with COVID and haven't been able to pay the bills. I have kids whose parents have died from COVID, who can't go to school anymore, and whose education is being massively stunted because of this. I am heartbroken beyond belief to know that my kids are suffering because some idiot decided to actively foster a pandemic for God knows what hidden purpose.
Two of my closest friends are frontline combatants in the war with this virus. My maid of honor, Wolf Amaryl, is a fucking pharmacy tech. And Mari is a teacher. And every day I worry about whether or not they will get infected. Whether or not the kids or the patients that they care for will catch it from them. Whether or not their roommates or their social circle or their family members will be put at risk. I caught COVID in January. For those of you that remember, I worked a convention table at Stockton Con this year. That was 11 months ago. And my table partner and one of my closest friends was sick with COVID and didn't even know. And I caught it because of that, and both of us were on death's door for well over a month. I was blacking out, I was overheating, I was coughing violently to the point where I would start vomiting because my body couldn't process the amount of pain it was in. And I'm immunocompromised because I was put on hyper-excessive doses of Geodon when I was an adolescent. So my body is just fucked. My gallbladder doesn't work. My kidneys malfunction. My digestive system is shot. The fact that I survived COVID was a fucking miracle. And now, with my body ravaged and permanently damaged by COVID, I'm dealing with black mold infection in my home. I could end up hospitalized because these motherfuckers decided to actively foster a pandemic that permanently weakens your respiratory system. Sure, there's still that 90% survival rate, but all of those people have to deal with permanent respiratory damage, permanent immunocompromisation, lifetimes of health complications that come from surviving this disease. The long-term effects of this are on par with the long-term effects of polio.
The entire reason that people lose their sense of smell or taste with COVID is because it literally burns away the nerves, and you have to entirely regrow a set of sensory nerves. It's a virus that is so aggressive that it destroys your body. So the fact that anyone is attempting to take it lightly, and these are things that we've known since June. This is information that we've gotten from other countries who've been able to completely quell it with their measures.
And remember,
the fact
this is a strain of SARS that evolves so rapidly, you can catch it multiple times in 1 year, and your antibodies will not recognize it.
In the UK, they're actually dealing with what is now being identified as a second mainline strain, which has its own substrains.
I am exhausted by the level of incompetence. We never locked down a healthy society. No instance of this ever. We essentially took off the battlefield the most potent weapon we had. Younger, healthy people, children, teens, young people who needed to fastly infect themselves, spread it around, develop immunity, and help stop the spread. That is not how herd immunity works.
That's so gross. It's like sending young people like lambs to the slaughter.
Exactly what they did with the AIDS crisis. Exactly what they did with multiple wars. The government is willing to let the young, impoverished, and especially people of color die. I will remind you that when the Navajo Nation reached out to the US government to ask for subsidized resources to survive the pandemic, they were sent body bags. Those are my cousins. Fellow indigenous people. Members of the First Nations who were allowed to die by the hundreds. Cherokee, Navajo, Inuit, indigenous people all over the country denied medical aid. We already deal with 5,000 indigenous people going missing every year due to sex trafficking and racist hate crimes. How many more have to die before this government is happy? How many more genocides? How many more innocent black people dying due to police violence and lack of accessible medical care? How many more immigrant children infected in ICE concentration camps? How many more people have to die for this herd immunity? We're not people to them.
The fact of the matter is that to this administration, no one is people to them except for their own allies. No one.
The only people that matter to them are the ones that line their pockets.
Because when you start putting the pieces together, this gets even worse, because here's the thing. Trump knew all of this. This was back in June. Think of all the rallies that he held for his campaign for the presidential election. Those were planned super spreader events.
Because he doesn't even care about his own supporters. He would kill as many people as he can and to remain in power. Or because power is all these fuckers care about.
This was a genocide. It was the planned and intentional slaughter of thousands of vulnerable minorities for political intent.
They built themselves up on a throne of corpses.
That's what white people are best at, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
There
it
is a
comes to a
rise in
point where
cases
it's
due to testing and also simultaneously due to the relaxing of restrictions. The fact that these people continually told their intellectually vulnerable and uneducated supporters that the reason cases went up was because we continued to test for it and not because the disease was intentionally being spread. The active spreading of misinformation.
And the worst part is a lot of these supporters are okay with fucking dying because as I've seen a couple times as with these bigger speakers, a lot of the ones who are Christian believe that this is the end times and that they're supposed to die in the name of Jesus or some fucking bastardized Christian bullshit.
which like cracks me up because in the Bible it straight up says like man cannot predict the hour of the end, which straight up means like any Christian should be able to say like the second that you think it's the apocalypse, congratulations, you just ensured that it's not. So like by their own metric even, they're deeply incorrect.
But they won't admit that because even religion itself is just a tool to them. They don't actually believe in God. They believe themselves to be as gods. And they will kill as many people as they can in order to create their own Tower of Babel out of corpses.
Yep.
Here is the issue. If the communication is left with just the statement that minoring groups are at a higher risk, then on its face, this is very accurate. However, in this election cycle, that is the kind of statement coming from CDC that the media and Democrat antagonists will use against the president. They are already doing it and accusing him directly of the deaths in the African American community from COVID. This is very wrong, for those deaths have more to do with socioeconomic status. And each time we talk about these deaths, we need to tell the nation why these deaths happened. Maybe they happened because you intentionally fostered the spread of a deadly strain of SARS that slowly kills you from the inside. You fucking troglodyte.
Here are some highlights and quotes. Let's see. In the document itself, on July 3rd, Dr. Alexander wrote to senior officials at HHS saying, so the bottom line is, if it causes more infectiousness now, the issue is, who cares? If it is causing more cases in young, my word is, who cares? As long as we make sensible decisions and protect the elderly in nursing homes, we must go on with life. Who cares if we test more and get more positive tests? The following day, he also wrote, there is no other way. We need to establish herd, and it only comes about by allowing the non-high-risk groups to expose themselves to the virus, period.
But there are no non-risk groups. Even fully able-bodied, completely conventionally healthy people can die of COVID. There is no such thing as someone who is not at risk. Anyone can die of complications created by COVID, because COVID is not the only disease that exists. Say you catch COVID and then while you're in the hospital, you also get infected with pneumonia. The complications that COVID causes to your immune system and respiratory system can make pneumonia almost impossible to survive. So though it will be registered that you died of pneumonia, your death was still caused by COVID due to the complications that disease creates. If you are capable of getting sick, you are capable of dying of COVID. And I know that YouTube is going to have a problem with me talking about this, but I don't care. This document needs to be shared.
You're on YouTube? I thought you were on Twitch.
Both.
Oh.
On page...
Is part of the problem. Pass it on.
Your internet must
Twitch
be
gonna have a conniption
crying.
over this too?
Go ahead.
What?
Is Twitch gonna have a conniption over this too?
Nah. Twitch auto
It
deletes
doesn't
my
violate
streams a month.
DMCA.
Okay.
Okay, on pages 6 and 7, in section 3, subsection A, it says, in a May 19, 2020 email, Mr. Traverse wrote to Dr. Alexander, Mr. Caputo, and other HHS staff that he was concerned a New York Times article on coronavirus risk could be touted as a reason not to open up America in red states. In response, Dr. Alexander suggested downplaying coronavirus risks by comparing the virus to the seasonal flu, writing, "We can explain it this way. The risk in US or even globally of person 60 years and less is less than seasonal influenza. The data shows this." Let's see. On May 30th, 2020, Dr. Alexander wrote to CDC press officer Scott Pauley and other officials at CDC and HHS with comments on a CDC press statement regarding coronavirus hospitalization rates by race and ethnicity. He stated, "Here is the issue. If the communication is left with just the statement that minoring groups are at higher risk, then on its face this is very accurate. However, in this election cycle, that is the kind of statement coming from CDC that the media and Democrat antagonists will use against the president. They are already doing it and accusing him directly of deaths in the African American community from COVID. This is very wrong, for these deaths have more to do with socioeconomic status. And each time we talk about these deaths, we need to tell the nation why these deaths happened."
Shiloh, can you link it in the description, by the way?
Sure.
So here, they were trying intentionally to frame it. No, not because you're a person of color, just because you're poor. The problem's just that you're not working hard enough to make enough money. This wouldn't have happened if you were a harder worker. Maybe if you stopped being so lazy. Because that's definitely not rhetoric or ideology steeped in centuries of racism. No. It's not as if we have, just decades and decades of research and studies displaying the direct correlation between people of color and socioeconomic lows due to institutionalized racism to the point where it is the standard that people of color, and especially women of color, are paid less on the dollar. That definitely has nothing to do with it.
Not to mention the deeply racist, ingrained issues in the medical system. How black women are statistically more likely to die in childbirth because they're less likely to be given the proper amount of medications and intravenous pain relievers in order to survive the incursion of producing a human life. Link to the document is now in the description. If you can't see it, refresh your page.
Appreciate it.
On page 9, in a July 3rd email obtained by the Select Subcommittee, Dr. Alexander complained that Dr. Fauci had warned the public to expect a dramatic increase in spread. Dr. Alexander continued, "He just won't stop. He can't keep quiet."
Can you tell me which page you're on?
Government? Page 9, towards the bottom, right above the footnote. So he said of Dr. Fauci, "He just won't stop. He can't keep quiet. Is he not on the same page of the government? Does he think he's the president?" On July 4th, he asked the HHS staff to stop Dr. Fauci from talking to the press, baselessly suggesting that Dr. Fauci is confusing people. He flip-flops the message too much, and the result is now he is not credible. Less than a week later, on July 10th, President Trump publicly criticized Dr. Fauci, claiming he made a lot of mistakes. On July 14th, Assistant to the President Peter Navarro published an op-ed in USA Today attacking Dr. Fauci and making claims the newspaper's editor found were misleading or lacked context.
Except it wasn't. Fauci was trying to warn people that the government was lying to them about the lethality and spread of the disease, and they got mad that they were being held accountable for their dishonesty. They ruined an innocent man's credibility.
How dare you tell us to be accountable? We're rich. We don't live by the same rules as the rest of you.
For the rules, yeah.
Yep.
Screw.
I can.
If you know the quote, you know the quote. I'm not gonna finish the quote.
Fuck the rules. I have money.
I
Honestly,
can
I would have a
guarantee
little
you
bit.
guys.
I would have.
I
a
can
little bit
guarantee
more
to you guys
respect
that.
for them if they actually came out and said, "Look, I just want more money, and if that means a lot of you have to die, then so be it."
But the sad part is they didn't even get that much more money. The fucking economy tanked during this fucking pandemic.
Oh, I wonder why. I wonder why a capitalist, late-stage fascist hellscape started to collapse under the weight of people realizing it's a fascist hellscape. It's almost as if the failings of our government exposed how truly incompetent representative democracy truly is.
Here's the thing.
Are you telling me that capitalism is a system of economic contradictions?
Exactly!
Profit has a tendency to fall.
Oh no, I would never say that. I would never.
Here's the last thing I'm going to say before I actually have to step out. But here's the thing. This came out 5 hours ago, maybe. We already have continued evidence furthering this from varying news sites. One of the foremost of which is Politico, which we love and cherish Politico for their unbiased, nonpartisan opinion in this house. But here's the thing. I can guarantee you that we are going to, in the coming days, be finding out more and worse information as we have members on both sides of the party line attempting to save their own reputation with their constituents, especially with the upcoming Georgia runoff election. We are going to have a lot more things coming out because now that McConnell has confirmed, yes, Biden will be the next president come January, a lot of politicians are going to be looking to save their own asses. So we are going to find out just how bad this has been on levels that we probably couldn't fathom. So I would say steel yourself for the days to come because we're going to find out more and it's just going to get worse.
Also, something to remember is that even if and when these former Trump administration and folks start to spill the beans, that doesn't absolve them of their sins. They were still complacent in the fucking genocide of over 200,000 people. They must still be held accountable for their crimes.
No one is arguing along that the line.
We are going to be seeing
nobody hears
along the lines of, I wasn't aware. I was just trying to do the best for my constituents. I had no idea. We're going to see a lot of people trying to absolve themselves of this. I just hope that it doesn't work.
Every politician in the Conservative Party is complicit. Every Democrat is also complicit.
The Democrats are, and the Democrats are a conservative. Like, you look at the leadership of the Democratic Party. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. They're austerity ghouls. They care more about the deficit than the Republicans do, and they're largely a big chunk of the reason why we didn't get the economic stimulus that we needed, that other countries have been able to provide, because they're such big deficit hawks.
They're defenders of the status quo.
Yeah, and all of them are complicit in this, even because if you are a person of any conscience, then when you see that, if you saw and understood that, the government is doing genocide against people of color and the disabled and just the working class in general, then you stand up to that, you expose it. But none of these people have any conscience. Getting wealth and power atrophies your sense of morality and ethics, and all of them, by silence, by willful ignorance, by doing what they can to not expose themselves to things held out against. All of them are complicit. All of them need to be held accountable with great prejudice.
There is no prejudice great enough. In my opinion, if this doesn't spark a revolution, nothing will. These people let us become permanently crippled or die because it served their economy. Because it served
And
their
on that cheery
ideals.
note, I gotta step out.
Have a
Take
good
it
day,
easy.
Mari.
Y'all too.
Yeah.
Best of luck.
All right, now, Chai,
For the question, Protodire posed in the Twitch chat, what would be worse than this? Quite a few things. We could find out that they intentionally put infected persons in crowded spaces, like planting intentionally, deeply dangerously infected individuals, that they intentionally fostered rates of infection being higher in minority communities. We could find out that they were doing here the same thing that they did during the AIDS crisis, during the introduction of crack cocaine into POC communities. Because remember, the CIA intentionally introduced crack cocaine into deeply populated black communities in order to further fund guerrilla warfare tactics. That was an actual historical event. Please read up about it.
This planet
what
sucks.
would be worse? I mean, look, you have people like Stephen fucking Miller in the White House. I would not be surprised if, like, documents came out or transcripts or something with people in the administration openly saying, how do we kill all the people of color, though they wouldn't use that word, that phrase. They'd use other words I'm not going to use. How do we kill them all and, blame Jewish people for it or something?
There is a perfectly reasonable suspicion among leftists that this conspiracy, people have believed that the government was intentionally allowing it to spread for a while now. A majority of us, because we thought it was a tactic to kill off low-income POC and disabled communities so that, they wouldn't have to fund social programs as much. There is a possibility that from the start, all of this has just been them intentionally letting people die for a profit. That they let the virus reach American shores for that reason. We don't know for sure, but all we know is that as of the summer of 2020, they were intentionally fostering the spread of this disease for political gain. And to Avian Python 33 in the YouTube chat, yes, it is the AIDS crisis all over, and I will continue to say that. This is the AIDS crisis all over again. People dying in the... You know what they used to do during the AIDS crisis as a means of protest? Queer people would write in their wills that they wanted their dead body to be dropped on the steps of the CDC building. And it was something that was actually done. Is that the dead would be preserved, and instead of buried, their preserved remains would be left on the steps of the CDC building. It was not a common occurrence, but it was done. Thank you, Marafox, for the donation. I appreciate that. That's very sweet of you.
All right. I just wanted to go back to something I had brought up earlier, which was you had said that nobody is going to be letting them in the conservatives once they start to spill the beans past. We won't. But I guarantee you,
I
there will
fully
be
believe
people,
that the maggots will allow them to get away with this.
I guarantee you, there will be fucking, I forgive you memes all over fucking social media, and it will make me sick.
Well, that's what conservatives do, is they intentionally let politicians get, I guarantee you, the fucking Ralph retort is gonna call this an accident. There are going to be all of these fucking conservative comedy pundits on YouTube making videos about, oh, they made a mistake, they were trying to help us, they didn't mean to let us die, 200,000 people isn't that much. I guarantee
200,000 people is the size of a small fucking country.
Ben Shapiro, I fully expect him to make this about the Jews. I fully expect Ben Shapiro to make this about Jewish people.
Well,
That
hypothetically
anti-Semitic
speaking,
bastard. Well, you see, my
Hypothetically
wife
speaking-
is a doctor, so technically she was also part of the conspiracy. Or some shit like that.
We are almost at the number of casualties from the Second World War at this point. American casualties.
More people have died of COVID than died in the AIDS crisis at this point. We have had a 9/11 every 3 days.
I think we're almost over that now. I think we're almost at the point of a 9/11 each day.
$200,000 people. Infants, children, mothers, sisters, fathers, brothers.
And I just saw, like I had, like when I woke up this morning, that like the DNC leadership is extremely angry at Bernie Sanders and AOC for insisting on one more round of cash payments.
Because of course they fucking are the.
In their great generosity, that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are willing to give us $600.
This should have been this pandemic should have been the thing that instituted universal basic income. This should have been the thing that caused UBI to finally be certified in the US. But no.
It should have been.
But my bootstraps, Shiloh, my bootstraps.
The problem is the only person who was talking about UBI was Yang, who was very explicitly saying, we want to use this to gut the welfare system.
Yeah, Yang is problematic on his own.
Yeah, no, we should have UBI. We should, honestly, everything that's listed in the UN Declaration of Human Rights is stuff that everybody should have because, again, they're fucking human rights.
But no, we're not allowed to have basic human rights.
Fucking water. I don't know if you've seen the stuff that's coming out about, like, the futures trading that's been going on in water, like the Bezos and like, the billionaires and stuff buying literal aquifers in order to be able to sell water to people once we run out of potable water in the near future.
They're buying out literal massive bodies of water on indigenous reservations all over the world and forcing the indigenous people living in these areas to buy their water from their fucking holy site. Bodies of water in many indigenous cultures are considered to be deeply sacred. And these companies are just sucking it up. And
the worst. And there are people who agree with this and are being apologists. I know this because one of them is my own fucking sister.
It feels like the human body can only take so much rage before it starts to fade. I don't know how much more of this we as a society can take. Suicide rates have skyrocketed during COVID. I think if things get any more bad, either a full-scale revolution or a full fascist takeover will take place. Those are the only options I can see.
Towards, just everything is coming apart at the seams, it seems. Actually, I was just talking to someone on a different Discord chat earlier. It was like, we're almost getting to the point where America has regressed so far. We almost need another bourgeois revolution. But yeah, no, to your point there, like we have been like as a population, as a race, as a species, in this like fight, like a permanent fight or flight state for like 9 months now, and you know that the stress hormones are just completely like it's like you said, it's killing us, like, literally. It's the deaths of despair from suicide and so on.
Hoffman, I can't hear you. You keep turning away from your mic.
Oh.
And they left.
No, probably. Go ahead.
Do you think a change in administration would help, or do you think...
Okay, no. I think the issue is with the representative democracy system as a whole. It just fundamentally doesn't work because it fosters, like, you gotta remember, Republicans and Democrats are not actually enemies. They are locked in this constant battle on purpose in order to benefit capitalists. A change in administration won't do shit. People will continue to die. Like, I voted for Joe Biden specifically to get Trump out of office because I hate everything he stands for. I'm still critical of Joe Biden. I don't think his administration is going to fix anything because he's still a member of the political sphere that allowed this to happen in the first place. He's still a politician. Politicians cannot be trusted. The government system as it exists cannot be trusted. This is why I'm an anarcho-communist. This is why I believe in mutual aid, not centralized government. Centralized governments do not work. Democrats were part of this problem too. The fact that we had to wait until Biden was confirmed for all of this to be released is devastating. This memorandum came out 5 hours ago. Dr. Alexander hasn't been a member of the subcommittee since September 14th. He was already removed from office. They could have released this information at any time in the past 3 months, and they waited until December. Why? Because of the fucking election. Because they knew if they released this after Trump would get confirmed for his second term, they would all be summarily executed.
There was... by the way, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Your sensitivity was acting up, and every time you turned away from your mic, you became inaudible.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm back on my laptop now, so hopefully this will be better. I want to read, this is from a debate about climate change from a couple years ago. I'm just going to read this. I can send you the link if you want to share it, Shiloh. But the guy, one of the presenters said, and I've had this quote saved because it sums everything up. He's talking about they're debating the question of whether or not to save the planet we need to abolish capitalism. And the guy who's saying, yes, we need to, is talking to his friend who's also an environmentalist, his interlocutor in this debate. And he says, now, despite being our opponents, these are good people who I greatly admire, and it's a pleasure to debate with them. But the question they have repeatedly failed to answer is, why haven't we won yet? Everything I've been hearing them say, I've been hearing them and people like them and people like us say for my entire working life. For 35 years, I've, this 5-point plan, it's marvelous, brilliant, fantastic, but I've seen it.
For 35 years, people putting this stuff forward. Why haven't we won yet? And the reason we haven't won yet is we're up against a system which is innately unreformable because of its intrinsic characteristics. We would love to reform it. We would love to have everyone coming out, all the capitalists coming out of their boardroom singing Kumbaya, but it's not going to happen. It is not how capitalism works. Capitalism is a system for accumulation. It accumulates profit, it accumulates power, it accumulates natural wealth at other people's expense, and we are seeing the results of that now. Why, despite all these marvelous things we have been hearing, are we not pulling back from catastrophe, but accelerating towards it? It's because this is not a system that can be reformed from within. This is a system that must be overthrown and changed. This is a system whose days I sincerely hope are numbered. And
I couldn't have put it better myself.
We cannot elect the right people to fix the pandemic. We can't institute new laws and policies to fix it. We can't reform it. And by the way, I'm not opposed in any way to welfare reforms and UBI and stuff like that. But fundamentally, just voting in Biden doesn't fix jack shit. And we know this because the Democrats lost the election. I mean, yes, Biden defeated Trump, but almost every down ballot race, they lost ground, to the point that their only hope is winning 2 runoff elections in Georgia, and then Kamala Harris will be the tiebreaker vote because it'll be a straight 50-50 divide in the Senate. The Democrats are not going to save us. I am happy that Trump is gone, or will be gone, but it's just been a total failure from this alleged progressive, liberal side of things, in this country's established politics. And if we want to do something about this, then the actual people, in this country, not the leadership, not the bosses, not the politicians, but like the actual working people, we're the ones that are going to have to do it for ourselves, because nobody's going to come save us. In fact, saving us is directly detrimental to the interests of the people that have the power to do it from above.
As I said earlier, and as I will continue to say until the day this country is fully dissolved and Turtle Island is returned to its original indigenous leaders. The system was fostered in order to create an environment wherein the ruling class can bleed us dry like a hungry horde of vampires. We are food to them. We are not people.
We are cattle.
The working class and the employing class have nothing in common. Like the IWW says.
Donald Trump thinks insurance costs $12 a month. Think about that. The President of the United States thinks health insurance costs $12 a month.
It's only a banana, Michael. It only costs, what, $12?
$10?
The ruling class does not know what it's like to live like this.
These people have not had to, do anything for themselves, since pretty much ever.
I hope I live to see the day that we drag these fascists into the streets and execute them. I hope I live to see that day. And I don't care if that gets me put on a government list. I'm already on one.
Yeah, same.
I am exhausted. My friends are exhausted. My family is exhausted. They did this on purpose. Remember that. Remember that when you're browsing through Twitter and thinking about whether or not you should block your cousin. When you're sitting at Christmas dinner tolerating your racist uncle's bullshit. Remember that the people that you are allowing to stay in your life intentionally elected fascists who let us die.
Anybody who voted for a Republican, you know, in this last election, you voted for fascism. You voted for a fascist, you know, party. And look, I'm very happy to, you know, talk about, you know, Robert O. Wilson and Umberto Eco and like, okay, is this actually, you know, we can debate the exact details of like what, you know, palingenetic ultranationalism or whatever, but they're doing fascist shit.
This is genocide.
Yeah, they're doing fascism. And if you're doing fascism, you're a fascist. And voting for the people that are doing fascism means you're voting for fascism.
If you
if you voted for a Republican, you're a fascist. And just straight up, okay, at this point. And
for everyone who still believes in the lie that, oh, the Republicans care about the little guy. They don't. They see you as cattle. They see you as a means to deepen their pockets. They see you as idiots who are granting them power. They do not care about you. They have never cared about you. They do not care about this planet. All they care about is their bottom fucking line. And if you don't understand that, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah, it's literal class war. You know, they are waging a war against the working class, against the oppressed. You know,
and the only reason that they still
has a body count.
It always had
and
a
the body count is.
It always had a body count.
Except now they're okay with the body count because most of the Republican supporters have been replaced with a death cult.
They've always been okay with the body count. They were okay with it when crack was introduced into inner city areas. They were okay with it when the AIDS crisis was allowed to run rampant and kill thousands of innocent queer people, some as young as 14. They were okay with it in the Vietnam War. They were okay with it with every Middle Eastern oil baron war there has been since I was an infant. There are two kinds of conservatives in this world. Those who do it because it protects their wealth, and those delusional enough to believe that it will protect them because they have no wealth. Democrats don't care about the working class, but neither do conservatives. No one care. Republicans do not care about you. Democrats don't care about you. Libertarians don't care about you. There is no political party that gives a shit about you as an individual. Because the system does not allow empathy. The system punishes empathy. Animal Paw Bunny, under what evidence are Republicans fascist? They literally fostered a pandemic in order to commit genocide for political gain. How is that not fascist? No, I'm not trying to understand their point of view. I hate Republicans.
We know
I want every single politician to be
Fascism is not an ideology to be debated. Fascism is not a set of ideas to discuss. Fascism is an evil. It is a practice that is to be opposed tooth and nail.
Paw Pony, there is literally a government document on screen right now that proves that Dr. Alexander, the former head of the subcommittee on the coronavirus crisis, intentionally let 200,000 people die. I don't give a shit about Republicans. I don't give a shit about any politician. I'm not trying to understand their perspective because their perspective let 200,000 people die.
Their perspective is fuck the poor. That's their perspective.
I don't care about their point of view. I don't care about their ideology. I don't care about, oh, I built myself, pulled up by the bootstraps. Oh, yeah? Oh, we don't owe immigrants anything. They don't need to be here. Oh, we don't. All we should care about is our own citizens, and then let their own citizens die slowly and alone from a crippling disease that shuts down your respiratory system and perforates your lungs as you slowly drown in your own blood. Do you know how COVID kills you? Do you know how COVID kills you? If it doesn't kill you from the viral infection, the coughing will slowly perforate the interior mucous membrane of your lungs and rip at the muscle, and you will drown in your own blood. That's how people die of COVID. That is how people die. They either die from complications to the virus infecting their system and shutting down their respiratory and circulatory systems, or they die drowning in blood. And the survivors don't have it any easier.
The Republicans are okay with that. You know?
Because they are a fucking religious death cult. I have said it before, I will say it again.
A Trump-appointed medical professional said he doesn't care if brown people die because this will benefit the economy. Because it creates herd immunity. 200,000 people. Innocent lives. There are concentration camps full of children who continue to be trafficked and sold to white families. Do you know how many kids in the ICE detention system have gone missing and were later found to be illegally adopted out to upper-class white parents in the United States? Thousands! These children are permanently traumatized, many of them suicidal at the age of 11. A teenager was found lynched in his hometown a month ago, and the police ruled it a suicide. How can you commit suicide with bound hands?
There have been this is, I think, what, day 5, day 6 of Hanukkah?
And there have already been 3 hate crimes on a national level.
Memorial was attacked. Synagogues have been attacked. Jewish people have been attacked, in person.
A Jewish religious school. Their website was hacked and replaced with thousands of uses of anti-Semitic slurs and fascist propaganda.
Yeah. Look, I don't need to understand the perspective or get into their minds of these people, because I know where it goes to. We've seen where it goes to. We know what this ends up in. It ends up in fucking Dachau and Auschwitz. Okay?
If you want to go hang out with people who understand the point of view of conservatives, go hang out with Aguilar and his shit-ass fucking... You want to go hang out with people who want to hear out Republicans and understand their point of view. Hang out with Aguilar. Hang out with Rocky. Hang out with people who actively voted for Trump and are unashamed about it. Go to someone who gives a shit. But don't come into my comment section and tell me I need to be understanding towards people who allowed the single largest genocide since the colonization of the United States. This is the largest genocide we have had since the slaughter of my ancestors when this country was originally established. And they're killing my people all over again. My cousins, my uncles, my aunties. Don't you dare come over here and say I should have empathy for conservatives when their decisions have killed my people over and over and over and over again. I have been silent about my experiences as a biracial person since I was an adolescent because I was ashamed of the fact that I had white blood, but I am Cherokee. I am Iroquois. And I am Blackfoot. I am biracial, and I will not be silenced any longer about the oppression of my people. You stole this island. You stole our land. You rape our women. You kill our children. And you want me to be empathetic. Go fuck yourself.
The right wing has had their say in the marketplace of ideas, and we know what it means. It means Shiloh. It means killing them. It means killing me. It means killing people like us. It means killing everyone who isn't like them.
Everyone in this call would be murdered under conservative rule. If we allowed Republicans to run everything, everyone in this call would be violently murdered.
And they wouldn't just stop at us. They wouldn't just stop at our people. They would eventually turn and eat themselves because, as I've said several times in this stream alone, the Republican Party, the American Christians are a death cult. They believe in their false prophets who say that this is the end times and that we're all going back to Jesus. And as somebody who has studied the Bible, Jesus would send every single one of those slime buckets straight to hell, where they belonged, because they have committed slaughter of God's people.
Yeshua would spit in your throat. Christ has no room in his kingdom for monsters like you. And as the Lady Lightbringer begged him in the sands of the desert to abandon his father, their abuser who would ask him to die on the cross for people who do not deserve it, I beg of you, abandon the Conservative Party. Abandon Republicans. Abandon the alt-right before they ask a death of an innocent man of you. Do not contribute to their kingdom of lies. The Lightbringer calls you. There is a better home for us than a prison made of pearls.
Do not throw yourself upon their throne of corpses, because it brings you nothing. All it does is make you another corpse, another part of their ladder of bones, trying to reach the kingdom of light and monetize it for themselves.
They want you to die for them. Just like they have asked of everyone who came before you. More people have died here than in the Vietnam War. In this year alone, more than twice the amount of people who died in the Vietnam War. This national embarrassment, this literal genocide. Black and brown children dying in hospitals. Grandmothers suffocating in their beds without being able to say goodbye to their grandchildren. Disabled people sitting alone in their apartments, slowly bleeding into their lungs because they couldn't afford treatment. You say that you have no responsibility to help them. You are not human if you think that money is more important than lives. if you turn away your neighbor simply because they are of another nation, then you are not of Christ. Fauci tried to stop this. Fauci tried to stop this. Dr. Alexander actively punished Fauci for trying to release the truth. The head of the subcommittee for the coronavirus crisis, Dr. Alexander, is the one responsible for this. Jesus' will is to provide free health care to the poor.
Jesus tells you to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, heal the sick, give water to the thirsty.
Hey, as the resident, Christian here, do I need to come down on someone?
Yes, in the YouTube chat, Paw Pony has decided to say that the deaths of these people is Jesus' word and will, not man's.
Fuck you. First of all, geez, I don't even have time for this shit. How can you be so fucking... Have you read the fucking New Testament, at all? Christ on a... God. I'm sorry. The fact that anyone... God...
I love you too.
It's because
this is why I almost never identify myself as a Christian. Honestly, because hey, look, I worship Jesus. I accept all the traditional dogmatic definitions, but I have nothing to do with you. Okay.
Also,
okay. Here, let me find where's my fucking Bible? Just a sec. Give me like half a minute. I need to find my Bible.
Paw Pony, I fully believe that Jesus was a real person. I'm a Luciferian. I believe.
But you know what?
I'm a Luciferian. I believe that Jesus was emotionally, physically, and psychologically abused by Yahweh. I believe that the Savior Christ was real, and that what Yahweh forced him to do was abuse. I believe that the Lightbringer, Lady Lucifer, goddess of the abandoned, goddess of the queer and the black and the Jewish and all those who Christ's so-called followers have abandoned, that the mother of light, that the bringer of autonomy, that the woman who granted us the ability to choose, begged Jesus to abandon Yahweh and his sinful self-obsession. And that Jesus sacrificed himself for people who should not have had to ask for forgiveness. Dr. Alexander, right here in the document, is quoting having said that we needed to allow people to get infected. Infants, kids, teens, young people, young adults, middle-aged with no conditions, etc. have zero to little risk of death at the hands of coronavirus. So we use them to develop herd immunity. We want them infected!
Okay.
Direct quote from Dr. Paul Alexander. He let this happen.
Here beginneth the 31st verse of the 25th chapter of the Gospel according to Matthew. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit upon his throne of glory, and all the nations will be assembled before him, and he will separate them from one another as the shepherd separates the sheep from the kid goats, and will set the sheep on his right, but the kid goats to the left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the cosmos. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was the stranger, and you gave me hospitality. Naked, and you clothed me. I was ill, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the just will answer him, saying, "When did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and give you hospitality, or naked and clothed you? And when did we see you ill or in prison and come to you? And in reply, the king will say to them, Amen, I tell you, inasmuch as you did it to one of one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. Then he will turn and say to those on the left, Go from me, you execrable ones, into the fire of the age prepared for the slanderer and his angels. For I was hungry, and you did not give me anything to eat. I was thirsty, and you did not give me drink. I was a stranger, and you did not give me hospitality. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Ill and in prison, and you did not look after me. Then they too will answer, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry, or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or ill, and in prison, and did not attend to you? Then he will answer them, saying, Amen, I tell you, inasmuch as you did not do it to one of the least of these, my brothers, neither did you do it to me. And these will go to the chastening of that age, but the just to the life of that age. Here endeth the lesson. Any fucking questions, you fascist piece of shit?
Why should people have to be forgiven for the choice God made? Why should we have to ask for forgiveness when he was the one who put the tree in the garden? He was the one who tempted us, not the serpent. He placed it there. He made that choice. He made the choice to instead of choosing to forgive his people, forced his son to die for it. The news came out 5 hours ago. This came out today. And he was punished in September. He was fired. They kept it from us on purpose.
Also, it hasn't been on news because news likes to hide stuff. Like that's a thing.
Thank you, Raven, for trying to keep this fucker under control, but at this point, I'm done trying to argue with a neo-fascist conservative who doesn't care about the lives of innocent people.
Yeah, and look, the future. So, Shiloh and I obviously have some disagreements about interpreting the scripture, but I think I will say this: Christ is very clear. You know, the rich cannot be saved, not as long as they remain rich. You know, there's no there are no linguistic tricks you can play with the text of the New Testament. He says very clearly, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, and it's not talking about a gate or anything. It's like literal camel, eye of a needle, than for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay, if you know, it's just, and I totally understand historically why Christianity has become so deeply embedded with imperialism and colonialism and fascism, but that is a total abandonment of the teachings and practices of Jesus and his immediate followers, yeah, no, it's not debatable if you just look at the text of Scripture.
I am of the mind that Jesus' sacrifice shouldn't have been necessary, but that his word is still true. A lot of my beliefs line with the direct text of Yeshua. And his actions and how he behaved as a person. All of my issues have to do with the Old Testament and with the words of Yahweh, of his father. That's where my issues.
For anyone listening, there are if anybody out there, I mean, there has been a lot of work on like trying to understand on, I mean, because like a lot of what we deal with today comes from much later ideas about the significance of, the idea of the atonement or the death of Christ in the crucifixion. Almost all of which is just horrific and, makes, it is this sort of, based on this sort of very bloodthirsty idea of God, which is totally incompatible with Christ and his teachings. If God can be said to be in any sense just or loving, then the idea that he would, have to send his son in order to die in order to feel good about us just is complete balderdash. It is completely, so again, I'm not particularly interested at this point in having.
No, we don't have to have a religious debate. I'm just trying to pick apart like the flaws in this individual's argument by presenting a perspective that completely disagrees with them on everything except for the fact that Jesus was an inherently good person. Like, because the idea that Jesus would have wanted 200,000 people to die painfully of a preventable disease is an insult to Christ. And I say this as someone who worships Lucifer, who worships the devil. My deity is directly in opposition of Christ in many ways. But I know that of all deities, Yeshua, Jesus Christ, would not have wanted these people to die, and would be insulted at the assertion that this is his will.
Jesus was not some pasty white lamb hugger, or the way that's the American Christian and indoctrination has made everybody believe, or rather their people believe. Jesus was a brown man, who was very he believed heavily in socialist ideology. Who tore down temples because money collectors were there. What the fuck do you think he would do with the mega churches? He would bring down the lightning of God to strike them into pieces.
He was a theocratic socialist, dark-skinned Palestinian.
He was an anti-imperial, revolutionary figure who was preaching the imminent coming of God to cast out both the corrupt leadership in the temple and the Roman occupiers in order to restore the people of Israel to true worship and to restore their physical, material misfortunes that had been taken from them by the collaborators and their occupiers. And he was put on trial and executed in a mock trial by the religious and political establishment forces of the day. That's who he was. That's what happened. That's just a matter of historical record. And when he went to the temple before his death and execution, the temple was the center of religious life, and it was under the control of very corrupt leadership. It was not a place where people would just go to make sacrifices in accordance with their tradition. It was also a major money-making operation and a proto-bank for the wealthy collaboration leaders in Palestine. And a big part of what it was the collection of temple taxes, the exchanging of money, the cultivating and sale of the animals that were to be used for the sacrifices there, which, in order to make sure, they developed the rules of what makes an appropriate, a good sacrifice. And surprise, you could only buy them at the temple, certified, pure. And it's this totally exploitative system. And when Jesus went there, he made a whip, very carefully, and then went in. And again, we have the image of overturning the tables. Those tables were not like the light wooden ones we have today. They were stone tables. And he let out all the sacrificial animals, and chased all the money changers out, and physically overturned the stone tables because it has because it was going against everything that he knew and believed to be true. And it is exactly the same thing that went on. It's similar to the same thing that went on in the medieval Roman Catholic Church with the selling of indulgences. It's the same thing that's on today with the prosperity preachers and modern megachurches.
Seed faith shit. God, I hate.
Yeah.
All my motherfuckers hate seed faith shit.
Fuck it.
This doesn't even, this entire stream wasn't about religion until fucking Paw Pony brought it up. This is supposed to be a stream about how we have direct proof that government leaders let their citizens die on purpose. We can't lose sight of that. Our government, our leaders, let innocent people die on purpose and intentionally wanted everyone to get infected. Protodire, to explain in the chat what seed faith is, it is the scam that if you give a preacher money, you'll get rich, basically. John Oliver did a segment on it. Wow, like a majority of the people in our call left.
That is disgusting.
Innocent people are dead because Paul Alexander let them die. No, Protodire, it's not like stocks, it's like a pyramid scheme. But shaped like a Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm just out of things to say on this issue other than I'm angry. And I want to see Paul Alexander's medical license stripped from him permanently.
Nah, fuck that. I want to see him.
I want to see him executed. I want to see him tried at The Hague and executed.
Hung by the neck until death.
Yep.
Burned alive.
Okay. Let me put it this way, because I am anti-death penalty. I am very willing to debate the ethics of the death penalty while a mob lynches him.
Robin, I'm gonna then DM me where you live so I can go buy you a beer.
You can just send some money to my GoFundMe.
I think at the end of the day, we need to keep in mind what this means, and start paying attention to the news, because we're going to see a lot more information about this happen. Because remember, this document was released today. This is a completely new document with completely new information. So in the coming days and weeks, we will see more come forward, and there's going to be a lot of politicians trying to cover their ass.
I'm sorry. I sent the Politico article to my family chat, and my brother says, "Oh, this looks more misguided than malicious."
Oh my god, these dense motherfuckers.
Dr. Alexander and the administration decided that people needed to get infected and die. And they executed policy to achieve that. That is actively doing mass murder, if not, genocide and ethnic cleansing. There was nothing. Okay, you might, by twisting the meaning of words around, be able to argue that the ideology underlying their actions was misguided, but the actions they undertook were actively malicious, and that is being extremely charitable in how I choose my words.
My chest aches.
Because unlike the people who occupy positions of leadership in this country, I try to be a good person.
Right? And I will say, this, just from the few times we have spoken, and you are one of the few people I know who actually follows the to the letter teaching of Christ and doesn't try to twist it.
It's Hroffen and Leo. Those are the only two real Christians I can say that I know personally.
I think I think Nietzsche was right. There was only ever one real Christian, and he died 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
I hate that you're right.
My attachment to this faith is more to do with just a bitter anger and refusal to let the bastards have this than it is anything else. But
you're a better person than I in that regard. Because I walked away when I moved out the first time.
Hey, I mean, I was put on trial for heresy while I was in seminary, so
Wait, what?
Yeah, I did a study of early Christian literature and the New Testament and wrote a piece. It wasn't that great, honestly, but, I still stand by the arguments that I made.
Hroffen, you should definitely share that paper in the server. I feel like a lot of people would love to read it.
I need to revisit it.
Publish it on Medium so that you can make some ad rev off of it.
Basically, I argued, and I'm not the first or the last or the best person to make the argument that going Christianity, or that going by early Christian writing.
Hold on, my roommate's doing something really goofy. I'll be right back.
Okay. Right. But you have to reject the idea of a hell of eternal conscious misery. And that we have completely misunderstood the significance of, the cross and life. And it's all basic stuff in many ways. But yeah, and I said, we have to come to a very different understanding of what sin is, of death and judgment and so on. And as a result, I was accused of teaching that there's no such thing as right and wrong, and everybody automatically goes to heaven when they die, which is not at all what I said. But yeah, and I was put on trial for heresy. It took several hours, and at the end I was acquitted, but we all voluntarily decided it'd be best if I left, so I did.
I mean, it's hilarious that the most Christian person I know was tried for heresy because you try to be as Christ-like as you can in your day-to-day life. That's funny to me. That's inherently hilarious.
Oh, absolutely.
You are probably one of the few people I've ever met who is as genuine as you are.
Tried for heresy. That is funny as shit. That is tried for we need to do a separate stream where you just tell me in depth the story of how you were tried for heresy.
That would be interesting.
We just need to do an interview where we talk about your weird experiences as a Christian ANCOM.
I mean, so the second time I went to seminary, I didn't lose my virginity. I know exactly where I put it. The first time I had PIV sex, I snuck a trans guy into my seminary dorm room.
Nice.
Amazing. Amazing.
That's
Proto-Dyer,
That's better-
Hierophant is not a man. Please correct that statement. Hierophant is
I am
queer.
very emphatically not a man.
Very emphatically not a man. Enthusiastically not a dude.
Aggressively queer.
Yes.
Gender, I don't even know her.
Pushing an agenda. I don't even have agenda.
Well, Proto, you actually got half of it right. Her pronouns are either they, them, or it is.
Yep.
Heck.
So here's how it goes. When I'm talking to cishets, you know, I'm bi and into some kinky stuff. When I'm talking to cis gays, I'm non-binary and pan and poly. When I'm talking with y'all, you know, I'm a agender void punk relationship anarchist bi lesbian.
Which is valid as fuck.
Indeed so.
Just remember, being trans is inherently punk as hell.
Yep.
Hey!
But with that pleasant ending, closing statement here, keep your eyes on the news because some shit's about to go down.
Mm-hmm. And join the Socialist Rifle Association, the Industrial Workers of the World, Food Not Bombs.
Remember to donate to the IWW before you subscribe to my Patreon.
Sliding scale, and we've been growing. We're doing online trainings now. There's an online training being planned for at-large members. So sign up and you can learn how to organize. And I will say, you know, I just joked at the beginning of the stream about the Socialist Rifle Association. So I don't use guns personally. I don't have any because I have a history of depression and suicidal ideation, and I don't feel comfortable having a one-click kill machine near me. Just as a point of personal safety. But I know how to use guns if need be. I think that's a valuable skill for people to have. They are important tools. And the Socialist Rifle Association, in addition to providing training in the use of firearms, which again I would encourage everybody to at least know how to handle a gun safely. They also do a lot of community organizing and mutual aid work. They work with other groups, like again I've mentioned my union, the IWW, which is a revolutionary anti-capitalist bottom-up working class union.
Which, by the way, Proto-Dyer asked, but before you continue, Proto-Dyer asked if they legally can donate to the IWW. Yes, all you have to do is buy their merch. Like, just buy some IWW merch. Yeah. Yes, Proto-Dyer, it doesn't matter that you are from England. It is the international workers of the world. Or industrial workers of the world.
Industrial workers of the world. Yeah, we actually have several branches in the UK.
That second W is literally the word world. The people from the UK
organized in Sierra Leone. There was a big organizational move that happened a few years back in Sierra Leone. We currently have a lot of people in Bangladesh and Bengal, in India. People who I've worked with actually in helping get organized.